Alright, hey everybody, welcome back for another Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 video. My name is Matt and we're going to be doing some flight training today. We're using Microsoft Flight Simulator to train in an airplane that's not available in Microsoft Flight Simulator, but it's an airplane I'm going to be flying in the real world. I'm transitioning out of Piper Cherokees and into the Vans RV12. So there's no Vans RV12 in the simulator, so we're going to be using something similar. The best thing we could find is the JMB VL-3. So the JMB VL-3 has a Rotax engine, so that'll allow us to start getting familiar with the Rotax. It's also a light airplane, similar to the two-seater RV12. We're going to treat the JMB VL-3 like it's a fixed gear airplane, so I'm not going to do anything with the gear. I'm going to leave it down all the time. This airplane also has 4 notches of flaps versus the RV12 only has 2, so we're going to be kind of winging it with our flaps, no pun intended. This airplane is faster than the RV12, so we're going to have to kind of wing it with the airspeeds, but other than that, it's similar enough. It's got a glass cockpit so that we can start training in glass panels. The RV12 that I'm going to be flying in the real world has a Dynon display, as opposed to this aircraft has Garmin G3X touches. Close enough. About the G3X touches, if you've seen my last video, the G3X touches first of all aren't available in PilotEdge, so that's why you see a G1000 overlay here. Also, the G3X touches, in terms of Microsoft and Asobo's implementation, need some attention still. So the touch aspect of the displays doesn't actually work, which is a little frustrating. Also, if I try to, so I can't touch my touch screens here and have it work. I can use my mouse and click around, that'll work. The other thing is, as soon as I pan my mouse off of Microsoft Flight Simulator and onto our displays, or onto the PilotEdge, even though this is set to click through in Air Manager, as soon as it's like Microsoft thinks I'm not, trying to pay attention to the simulator anymore. So all of a sudden the simulator stops paying attention to my flight controls. So it creates a little bit of a distraction when we're trying to tune our radios and use the GPS. But we'll do the best we can. It's just something to keep in mind until Microsoft and Asobo can fix it. So I think that's just about it for the admin information. Let's talk about what we're doing for a flight today. So first of all, this is what we're gonna be flying, or what we're training to be flying. So here's our Dynon panel. So G3X is gonna get us something close to that. It's a pretty simple. We only have one screen. We're gonna be simulating using 2 screens in the simulator because I can't get my engine instruments. Engine indications all on the one screen in the simulator, so there's still some simulatorisms that we're working through. The other thing that we're using this video for is to start getting familiar with flying the traffic pattern in the RV12, as well as some of our specific engine-specific operations. What else? And then V-speeds is another thing that we're going to be focusing on today. So we'll see if we can use the simulator to make getting into the real aircraft a quicker transition process. So for today's flight, we're going to be flying on PilotEdge, talking to ATC. We're going to be flying from Chino to Corona Municipal, doing pattern work at Corona Municipal, and then flying back to Chino. So that said, Chino is a Class Delta. We're going to be having to remain underneath the Class Charlie shelf for Ontario International, so we can't climb over 2,700. And then same thing when we're operating at Corona, we're going to need to be under 2,700. So that takes care of our briefing. Let's get in the aircraft. And the other thing we're doing today is getting familiar with the checklist. So I have a RV12 checklist here that we're going to be working through. So We're up to pre-start. So passenger brief, we'll call it complete master switch is on. Coming on with the master switches. I don't have the ability to turn on our Dynon screen or our glass screen independently in the simulator. In the real world, I think it's the menu button. You can click and hold it, but that doesn't work in the simulator. So I'm just going to turn on our avionics on, deviating from the checklist a little bit. While those guys are booting up, I can start popping them out. And we can start positioning them. I don't know why my fancy zones are not cooperating lately, but this guy, he sizes properly, he just doesn't place properly. And I tried messing with him, but he wasn't working, so ultimately I admitted defeat so that I could get into the cockpit. Okay, continuing with the checklist. So master's on, nav strobe lights on. So we're going to turn all of our lights here on, including our landing light for visibility. Canopy down, we'll verify that our canopy's down. Safety belts fastened and secure, so our belts are on. Fuel valve open, so we're going to reach down between the seats in the RV, and down here there's a knob that we can push down to make sure that the fuel valve is open. Throttle adjust friction, we're going to call the throttle friction good where it is. Brakes test, we're going to press our brakes, they work. We'll make sure that our parking brake is set, it is. Ignitions A and B on, so we're going to turn A and B on. Engine start, fuel pressure normal, we're looking at our fuel pressure here. I don't see that I have a fuel pressure indication based on what we have for a display here, and I don't think we have the ability to change any of this stuff, so I'm just going to notionally say fuel indication's good. Cold start, so we are going to be doing a cold start today, so we're going to go closed with the throttle, and choke, we're going to pull the choke. Choke is pulled. Brakes hold, so parking brake is set. I'm on the brakes. We're going to clear around the aircraft. It's clear. Propeller, so we're yelling out the window, clear prop. Ignition key engage, and then choke is in and locked, throttle to 200, and we're checking our oil pressure. Okay, one more time. We'll clear around the aircraft, clear prop, keys coming on. Nothing there. So I did just have this aircraft running a minute ago, notionally before I started the camera, so maybe we don't need to choke it. So choke's coming off. I'm going to do 1/8 of an inch, and oh, we also don't have our fuel on. So let's go to the left tank. We're full fuel, both, and in the RV we only have one tank, so we'll call that the fuel valve on. So let's try the cold start again. There it is. Choke's going in. RPM to 2000. And we're looking for our engine oil pressure and temperature. We see both of them climbing into the green. Working on getting that RPM outside of the avoid range, so RPM's above 1800, and that's in accordance with our note here. Taxi RPM 1800 to 2500 until the oil temp is above 120. And I think there's a note somewhere else that says the Rotax engine operates on the rough side below 1800, so typically we keep the RPM above 1800. Okay, continuing along. So oil pressure and oil temperature are in the green. I have noticed that the oil temperature in this aircraft runs hot in the simulator. It stays right on the high edge of the green, so we'll call that notionally, centered in the green, and call it a simulatorism. Ammeter, we also don't have an ammeter in this configuration of our instruments, so we'll notionally say our ammeter is good. After start, avionics on, they are. Autopilot is not installed in our aircraft, and I'm looking around. Do they have an autopilot in this aircraft? It doesn't look like they do. We wouldn't be using it anyways because we don't have one in the real world, but anyhow. Headsets on, comms as required, so I'm going to make sure that you guys are looking at what we're looking at here. So we are on the ground here at Chino, verified by our moving map here. And we could also go split screen here. Verified we're on the ground here at Chino. And we have Corona Municipal set as our GPS point. Okay, so let's see. We're going to want to get the ATIS 121.85, and I'm also going to want to, oops, in the simulator, go to General Options, and if I'm going to be on the PilotEdge network, I'm going to want to take sound to off, voices are off, and we'll make sure that traffic is off. So we'll go back, and we should probably, at this point, get ourselves connected. 935 Whiskey Tango RV12, connect. Mode C is already on, we'll leave that alone. Okay, so we're connected, we're logged in. Go back to here, and we want to tune in. So I think at this point we can go to our outside view. Okay, and oh man, is this going to give me issues? It's not this'll. There we go. 12585 for the ATIS.
Ground Skyhawk 101 Golf Victor at Eastern General Aviation Park.
And then next we're going to want Chino ground on 121.6. Did I do that right? 125.85 for the ATIS. 125.85. I'm not hearing the ATIS.
In India, or do you have information, Zulu?
We have runway 6 via Alpha, 1 Golf Victor.
I wonder if that's because I told the simulator we had information Zulu, maybe? 125.
1 Golf Victor, roger. The field is IFR, say intentions.
85. 118.5 is tower. And that's why we used Zulu, because we knew, yeah, there was some IFR conditions out here. Okay, so we're going to say that the weather's good. We're going to say it's an overcast day, and let's notionally say clouds are 4,000 feet, so not a factor for us. Altimeter set, we're going to do 29er. We'll set it to field elevation here, which is 617. And I'm looking at, let's see, Barrow. We'll call that 617, 29901. Transponder, we'll make sure we're squawking altitude mode, 1200 and alt mode. Flight instruments check. Looks like we're pitch level and trim level, or roll level on the altitude, or on the attitude indicator. Looks like our airspeed reads 0, and it looks like we're at field elevation. We're not climbing or descending per the VSI. Our heading matches the general direction that we're facing right now, according to where we're facing in the simulator and our compass, because I don't think this aircraft has a magnetic compass in it in the simulator that I could see. What else? I think that's it for our indications. Flight plan load. So we already have our flight plan to Corona Municipal. Airport diagram. We have that pulled up. We are holding at Kilo, taxiway Kilo, and we're going to be taxiing VFR for departure to the south with information Zulu, because we have custom weather. And it's Chino ground that we're talking to. So landing light is on, taxi area. We're all clear around the aircraft. Let's see. Brakes test, we'll test them on the way out. Clearance, we'll call ground to get our clearance. During taxi, we'll verify flight instruments move properly, and we're going to hold the controls. We'll say winds were calm. They were calm per the PilotEdge ATIS when I checked it and saw that the field was IFR. So we're going to keep the controls aft every time we're taxiing to keep the weight off the nose. And we're up to our engine run-up. I think we can just do our engine run-up right here. We don't see anybody around us if we were to hop. Whoa! Sorry about that. Wow. Yeah, so that, again, my mouse cursor was down here over our radios, so I think that's what that was about. Things freaking out. Yeah, so we got nobody around us. Let's go ahead and do our run-up. So brakes, we're holding the brakes. Flight controls, check. We're going full forward. We see the stabilator does what we want it to. Full right, we got our flaperons up on the right. Aft, all the way to the left. Alright, so free and correct. Back in the aircraft. Flight controls are good. Flight instruments check and set. So again, we're looking at our flight instruments. We got them all set the way we need them to get going here. They're checked. Fuel quantity, 4 gallons minimum. We said we're full fuel, and if we look at our fuel quantity down here, it's indicating full. Canopy latched, so we'll latch the canopy. Oil temperature, 120, and I'm looking at 223. That looks good. Oil pressure is a little low, but we've been sitting here at idle, and you know what? We should be keeping our RPM up at... Oh, we just said above 1800, so it was fine where it was. Okay, stick back. Run-up area clear, so I get the stick back. We're clear behind us. Throttle up to 4,000. We're doing our ignition checks. We're looking at the engine instruments and the ammeter. So, power's coming up to 4,000. I'm on the brakes. We're clear all around us. Alright, there's 4,000. Engine instruments are in the green. We'll do our mag checks. So we're going to go to the right. We did see a drop in RPM from 4,000 down to 3960. Back to both. Rises back up. Actually, it did not rise back up. Let's try the left. 3950, small drop, back to both. Yeah, it doesn't drop a whole lot in the simulator. Where did I go? Ammeter, we don't have the ammeter, but we'll say it's notionally good. Voltage looks good. And throttle idle. Coming back to idle. Engine doesn't die on us at idle, and we're going to get it back up outside of the rough range, back above 1800. Alright, so throttle's at 2,000, throttle friction adjust, it's fine where it is. Fuses check, we're looking at our fuses, they look good. None of them are illuminated, which would indicate that they're blown. Fuel pressure, 2.2 psi minimum. Fuel pressure, we don't have an indication of that in this G3X, so we'll call that good. Seatbelts were fastened, so takeoff brief. If we have a failure, before we've rotated, we're just going to take the throttle back to idle, hit the brakes, we'll get off onto a taxiway and figure it out there. If we've already rotated and we have usable runway ahead of us, we are going to take the throttle back, choose an airspeed about 60 knots, and then do a normal approach, put it back down on the taxiway, or on the runway, exit the taxiway and figure it out off at parking. If we've rotated and we don't have runway ahead of us and we're below 1,000 feet, we're going to put the aircraft down within 30 degrees to our left or right. We're going to find a field to put it down in, and we're not going to try to turn back to the airport. And if we are above 1,000 feet, we have sufficient altitude to turn back to the airport, so we'll make a turn back to the airport and we'll land the opposite direction. So brief is complete. So we could do our before takeoff check here. So pre-takeoff brief is complete. Landing light, we're going to leave our landing light on where it is. Transponder set, we already set it to altitude mode. Fuel, and we'll verify it's 1200 for VFR. Fuel quantity check, quantity is full. Fuel valve, we verified it's open. The red knob is down. Trim set. So the trim is set for takeoff where it is. I'll bring it back just a little bit. I found that that's about good for this airplane in the simulator for a 75 knot climb. Flaps first detent. So in the simulator, this aircraft likes to do 2 notches of flaps for takeoff. So in the RV, we would do no flaps or one notch for a short field. But yeah, for having the proper sight picture on climb out, we're going to do 2 notches in this aircraft in the sim. Engine instruments, we're verifying our engines in the green. We're going to latch our canopy, make sure we get the green light telling us the canopy's latched, and takeoff procedures we've reviewed, so we're keeping the nose slightly off. We're treating all takeoffs like they're short field in this aircraft, keeping the weight off of the nose. We're going to rotate at 50 to 55 knots. We're going to climb at 75, which is VY, and flaps will come up if we're using them at 500 feet. So we'll call this a no flap takeoff for an RV, even though we're using them in the for the JMB. I think we're good to make a call over to ground. So this is going to be Chino ground on 1216.
Tower Skyhawk 101 Golf Victor, ready for takeoff runway 6.
We know they're using 26 right and left, so we're expecting they're going to have us taxi via
101 Golf Victor
Alpha, cross 21
good for takeoff, make
for
right
26 right.
Clear for takeoff runway 6, make right downwind departure. 1 Golf Victor, thanks.
Chino ground, good morning, experimental 935 Whiskey Tango at Kilo Taxiway. Taxi VFR for a departure to the south with Zulu.
November 9035 Whiskey Tango Chino ground, runway 26 right, taxi via Alpha Papa, cross runway 21.
Taxi 26 right via Alpha Papa, cross runway 21 for experimental 935 Whiskey Tango. Okay, it doesn't sound like I'm getting a read back correct. We'll start moving forward. So, we're coming off the brakes. Power's coming in. And here we go. So our oil temperature is all heated up, so no via Alpha Papa. So, we're going to want to take a left here on Alpha. Coming forward.
John 1 clearance, Baron 44901 Foxtrot, request our IFR clearance to Burbank, CAT or I3 rating with Zulu.
He cleared us to cross, but we can take a quick look at the right and left just to be sure. We're crossing.
On departure, turn right heading 220, radar vector Seal Beach VOR, and then as filed. Maintain 2000, expect 4000 in 10 minutes. Departure frequency 128.1, squawk 3161.
Alright, clear to Burbank, 220, radar vector is Seal Beach, then as filed, 2000, expect 4000, 10 minutes after departure, 128.1, and 3161 is the squawk, 44901 Foxtrot.
491 Foxtrot, read back correct.
Okay, so we'll hold here, get back in the aircraft. We already did our before takeoff check. Flaps and trim are set. Our lights are on, so lights are on, camera, they can see us, we're squawking 1200 action. So flaps, trim, and fuel's all good where it is, fuel's on. Let's switch over to tower. Naturally, none of this stuff wants to work. I don't know what's going on here. Yeah, it's pretty distracting when stuff doesn't want to work. There it goes. I don't know what that's about. Okay, so we have 118.5, which is Chino Tower. Next thing we're going to want to be doing is talking to Corona Municipal on 1227, so we can put that in here. $118.5, and we got 1227 in the standby. Okay, 118.5 will make a call. Chino Tower, experimental 935 Whiskey Tango, holding short 26 right, ready for takeoff.
November 935 Whiskey Tango, Chino Tower. You said you're going left to Corona?
Roger, south to Corona.
November 35 Tango, left turn on course approved, runway 26 right, cleared for takeoff.
Left turn on course approved, 26 right, clear for takeoff, experimental 935 Whiskey Tango. Okay.
And Bakersfield Tower 1550 Sierra Zulu is 10 miles to the southwest, inbound for full stop.
Nobody coming in on
Zulu,
final,
Tower,
coming
left
forward.
base, runway 30 right, report 2 miles southwest.
We'll report 2 miles
Keeping the stick back.
We'll enter a left base for 30 right, 155 Sierra Zulu.
Keeping the RPM above that 1800. Verified we're on 26 right. Alright, power's coming in, keeping the stick back, keeping the nose off. Once the nose comes up, we'll let it down again. And we're looking to climb at 75. It's an awfully nose-high sight picture. Getting it trimmed out so that we can go hands off here. 75, climbing at 75. That looks good right there. Okay, so airport elevation was 600. We're climbing through 1300 now, which is 700 feet above the airport. He cleared us on course, so we're coming left. We're clear left and coming left. We're keeping that climb going. We got an 850 feet per minute rate of climb here. Again, I said I'm going to leave the gear down. We might even act like 2 notches is our clean flaps setting in this aircraft. Let's see how that works. We'll call this flaps clean.
John Wayne Ground, Aaron 4491 Foxtrot at the West FCO.
And again, we said we need to stay below 2,700 feet. We got clouds above us, so we're going to have to stay below the clouds. Standard VFR cloud clearances.
For 4491 Foxtrot, John Wayne Ground, runway 20 right, taxi via Bravo Kilo.
20 right, Bravo Kilo, 449 Foxtrot.
Alright, so looks like we're level here at 90 knots. We can take the throttle back outside of our 5-minute limit. We'll do a cruise. We don't need to get there super quick, so let's do 5,000 RPM. We can cruise continuously up to 5,500 RPM. Okay, and we can start working through our cruise check here. Make sure we're keeping the wings level. Keep this thing in trim, ball in the center. Okay, so cruise, level off, accelerate, we've already done that. We're at 90 knots here, level at 1650. We're trying to maintain that 1700 feet. Trim the nose back just a bit. Throttle 5,500 max continuous. We already get that set to about 5,000 right now. Engine instruments, we're verifying our oil PSI and oil temperature both in the green. exterior lights, we're leaving our lights on. We're actually 2 miles from Corona now, so I'm going to make a call. 26. So this is kind of, yeah, interesting because we're still inside the class Delta, so I can't switch off of their frequency yet, but we know we need to be calling Corona soon. So I'm just going to stay 2 miles outside of Corona's airspace until I'm outside of the Delta, and then we'll frequency change. Alright, so we're going to call this clear the Delta. Put a little bit of nose high pitch so that the aircraft continues to fly itself while we're tuning our radios. We can switch this guy over to 1227, which we verified that's Corona Municipal. We're not going to check the weather because we at Corona because we just came off at Chino. We know we're good. Corona Municipal Experimental 935 Whiskey Tango, 2 miles to the north. We'll be overflying the airport 500 feet above, entering a left downwind for runway 25 Corona. Okay, we'll start our turn to the right. We're clear out the right. I believe that's the airport there. We're looking good. And we know we're going to want to be 500 feet for a midfield crosswind, so we need 2,000 feet for altitude. So we'll get a little bit of a climb going here, make sure that we're a clear 500 feet above pattern altitude for this midfield. No, really, we should just be... We're doing the right thing. We're entering on a left downwind. Okay, got the airport in sight. Climbing up to 2,000. We're going to not want to be above 2,700 because we got to stay below the Class Charlie shelf. We don't hear anybody else at the airport with us here, so we're probably all alone. Flying 500 feet does allow us to observe the windsock. We should verify that Corona is runway 25. It is. It's a 3,200 feet runway, so, you know, moderately sized, not too long, not too short. Put a little bit of a bank in here so that we can bank to the left and look down at the airport. It's still off the nose. Yeah, so I'm looking at our flaps here. So clean 1, 2, 3 is what this aircraft has. 3 notches of flaps. So really we should call this right here 1 notch of flaps. Maybe we'll do that. Actually, it looks like we do have somebody in the general area. Alright, we'll make a call. Corona Municipal Traffic, Experimental 935 Whiskey Tango, midfield 500 feet above pattern altitude. We're entering a midfield left downwind, or midfield crosswind entry for a left downwind to runway 25 Corona. Alright, not hearing anybody. We can take the power out and start coming down to pattern altitude. Start slowing down to 80 knots. Looking good there. This guy in front of us, what is he doing? He's coming in here, but he's not talking. Nobody on the runway. I guess we're number 2 behind this guy, even though we don't hear him talking. 1227 is what I have in the radio. Okay, so we don't want to get slow. So we're looking for 4,000 RPMs, which will hold our 80 knots. We're at about our 45 here, so power's coming out. Corona Municipal, Experimental 935, Whiskey Tango, entering left base, 25, Corona. No, this guy's also. I'm going to assume he's in the pattern, and I'm going to stay behind him. Yeah, that guy. Alright, our altitude now is 1100, so we've already started our descent. Make sure that we don't get too slow here, so we're already 60 knots. We do want to give him some spacing just in case he's landing ahead of us. Alright, I'm going to start my turn. Corona Municipal Traffic, Experimental 935, Whiskey Tango, left base 25, Corona. Yeah, so he looks like he's going into land. Alright, so 1,100 feet, that's 700 feet on for a base leg. We're at 75 knots, so we can continue that slow back. And we do want to be even slower to give him some spacing. Power's coming back, we're coming left. Corona Municipal, Experimental, final 25, Corona. Keep the power coming back. Alright, so we're going to treat the flaps right now like we have 1 notch of flaps in there. So we got our 1 notch of flaps. Our speed, we're looking for about 65 knots. Get it trimmed up so that we can fly hands-free. And then we're going to use that final notch of flaps to affect our rate of descent. Feeling like we're just a little bit low here. Yeah, what do we got? 700 feet? Yeah, we're 100 feet above the ground here. We're 200 feet above the ground, so we're low. So we're going to keep the power in. Try to gain some altitude back. Get back on that glide slope. I'm looking ahead trying to see if I see him on the runway. I don't. The lights are still telling us that we're below glide slope, so I'm keeping that power in. Corona Municipal, Experimental Traffic, short final 25, Corona. Alright, I'm calling that good for our glide slope. Power's coming back out. There we are. We're on our glide slope. Looking to maintain between 55 and 60 knots. Alright, landing's assured. We're going both notches of flaps. We'll start our flare. Hold it, hold that nose off. Aerodynamic braking. Holding the nose, sticks full aft. Aerodynamic braking while we do some gentle braking to make our taxiway here. We're keeping the stick full aft. Climbing into the wind, there's our windsock. So, and then we're going to want to take the taxiway and we're going to want to dive away from the wind. So, without taking too long here, we're just looking out the left and the right. Make sure that the taxiway is clear. It is. Coming forward. Corona Municipal Traffic. Experimental clear 25. Corona. Alright. Taxiing with the RPM somewhere in the realm of 1800 to 2500. All right, we're sitting here at the approach end. We're taking a look on base and final. We don't see anybody in the traffic. We'll make a call. Corona traffic, experimental RV departing 25 left traffic, Corona. Coming forward. We should do a before takeoff check. So we'll get it trimmed for takeoff. We're calling that clean flaps for the takeoff. With a 3,000 foot runway here, 3,200 feet, we're calling that long enough to do a clean flap takeoff. What else is in our before takeoff? Landing lights on, transponders on, fuel quantity, fuel valve, trim is set, flaps are set, engine instruments are in the green, canopy's latched. Alright, that's good. We already made our call. We're continuing forward. Should look, make sure nobody's on the runway. Runway is clear. Okay, we got the center line, 25 coming forward, keeping the weight off the nose. As soon as the nose comes up, we're letting off of it just a little bit. And we want to hold that nose on the horizon and climb for 75 knots. I'm gonna call this 80-85 knots good enough, just so that we're not doing a crazy nose height attitude, just knowing that this aircraft is a little bit slipperier than, a little more slippery than the RV12. Climbing through 1100, we took off from 500, so 700 plus that's 1200. There's our 700 feet. Crosswind altitude, we're coming left. We're going to want to level it off. We'll call it 1600 feet. Alright, so leveling it off. Power's coming back to 4,000, 4,500-ish. Looking good on crosswind there. Corona Municipal, experimental RV, left crosswind, 25, Corona. Alright, and looking left, coming left onto our downwind. Looking for 80 knots in the downwind. Should be between 4,000 and 4,500 for RPM. We'll get it trimmed out so we can fly hands off. Corona Municipal traffic, experimental RV, left downwind 25, Corona. Let's see how we're looking there. Looking good on downwind. We're a little quick. We'll keep the power coming back. We might have to do 3,500 now when this aircraft is faster than the RV. Alright, there's our 80 knots. Power's coming back in. Without getting blown into our course. Okay, so there's 75 knots right there at 4,000, so that's probably good. We'll start coming back with the power now that we're just about a beam. If anything, we're beyond a beam and nearing our 45. So we can do 1 notch of flaps. We'll keep the, we'll trim it out so we can be hands-free. We're looking for 65 knots. And we're turning left on base. Corona Municipal traffic, experimental RV, left base 25, Corona. Right, so we're holding that 65 knots. We want to start our descent. Power is coming out. It's an ugly pattern. We got to keep the power coming out. Alright, 500 foot per minute rate of descent. Finally started coming back down. We're keeping that airspeed at 65. We need a little more descent here. Okay, and we're going to check, do our belly check. There's nobody coming straight in. We're coming left. Corona Municipal Experimental RV, final 25, Corona. Alright, we blew through our course a little bit. We're going to come back onto the runway heading. Keeping that power coming out because we're high. We're going to come all the way back to idle. We're going to use that last notch of flaps to affect our rate of descent, although we look like we're coming down pretty good now here at idle. We're still got 65 knots. We want to keep it trimmed out. Keep that speed coming down. We're right on glide path, keeping that speed coming back, keeping it trimmed out. Alright, we want to be between 55 and 60, so we might even need a little bit more power. Power is coming back in. Slightly below our glide path, power is coming back in. Still haven't used that last notch of flaps. It's still available when we need it. 52 knots. Okay, we're going to call that landing assured. Power idle, last notch of flaps. Coming down, start our transition, looking down the runway. Nose up, flying it, keeping off, holding that nose. We got full aft aerodynamic braking. We're on the brakes just a bit to make this taxiway. We're coming left. We're going to look. Taxiway looks clear. Alright, we're taking the taxiway. Coming forward. Corona Municipal Experimental RV Clear 25 Corona. Alright, we'll hold the brakes here. Get it trimmed up for takeoff. So we're calling that flaps clean. We're going to get our trim set for takeoff. And let's do our before takeoff check now. Before takeoff. So our pre-takeoff briefing is complete. Landing light is on, transponder is on in alt mode 1200. Fuel quantity, we still got significant fuel on board. Fuel valve is open, trim set. We already set our trims and flaps. Engine instruments checked. They are in the green. Oil pressure is a little low because we're operating at a low RPM setting. We're trying to keep the RPM outside of that rough operating region. So that's why we're doing this in the sim before getting in the real airplane, so that we can start getting those muscle memory habits in place. So we got RPM above 1800 now, where we want it. Where am I? Okay, instruments are checked. Canopy is latched. Takeoff procedures. So we're holding. So now that we got the wind behind us, we're going to want to dive away from the wind. So I'm holding the stabulator forward. We're going to run a rotate 50 to 55, climb out at 675. Actually, let's do a short field takeoff. So we're going to do one notch of flaps here. Brakes, hold until full power and rotate at 50 to 55 and climb at VX is 60. So we're coming down the taxiway. Coming up to 2500 RPM to get moving here, and then we'll bring it back down to 1800. Naturally, this truck is going to pull out in front of us. Love that. Alright, doing our best to hold that taxi line. Keeping the RPM above 1800 while we hang out here, and we'll make our call. Corona Municipal Experimental 935 Whiskey Tango departing runway 25 left close traffic, Corona. Okay. Base and final are clear. We're coming forward. I want to double check the other end of the runway. Runway is clear. Coming forward. Alright, short field, so we're going to use all of the runway here. So I'm on the brakes. We're coming up to full power. And we're holding the nose back. Full power, 5500. Release the brakes. Release that pressure on the nose. We're going to climb. Looking to climb at VX is 60. So holding the nose high, 60. Till we're clear obstacles. We're going to say clear obstacles there. Pitching for airspeed. Pitching for VY. Looking at that speed coming up. We got a positive rate of descent clear still, so we're going to go flaps clean. And let's put that nose on the horizon. We're climbing at VY is 75. Field elevation's 500. We're at 13. We're clear of pattern altitude, or we're crosswind altitude, so we're coming left. We'll level off at 1,500 feet. Power's coming back, nose coming down. We're clear left, we're turning left. I should really look and see, is pattern altitude 1,500 or 1,600 here since we're doing patterns. Alright, we're coming left. Clear left. Corona Municipal Experimental RV left downwind 25 Corona. We got 80 knots in downwind, looking good. We want about 4,000 RPM, should give us that 80 knots. So we got 4,000 in there. We want to get it trimmed out so that we can go hands off. Let's see what that does for us. So there's our 1,500 feet altitude. About midfield downwind here. The speed's coming down, 80 knots. Alright, so we're a beam there. We'll start taking the power back. Maybe 2,500 RPM or so. Start bringing the speed back, getting it trimmed out. Can do the first notch of flaps. Coming left. Looking for 65 knots. Looking to start getting that altitude coming down. .65 knots looks good. We got a rated descent in there. Rated descent's a little higher than we want. Alright, that 65 knots looks good. 1,200 feet, yep, so that's good base altitude. Corona Municipal Experimental RV left base 25 Corona. Do a quick belly check, nobody on final. Alright, we're going to keep that speed coming back. Corona Municipal traffic, Experimental RV final 25 Corona. Keeping that speed coming back, keeping the throttle coming back. We're above glide slope here. We still have that second notch of flaps handy. We're on glide path, 65 knots. Keep the speed coming back. Looking to get it trimmed out so that we're flying it hands-free at 60, 55 to 60 knots here. There's our 55 to 60. We're looking good. We're slightly below glide path, so we got the power coming back in. Keep that speed up. We're going to go second notch of flaps, landing assured. Power is coming back to idle. Nope, we need a little bit of, we're sinking. Power's coming in. Alright. 55 knots, start the flare. Looking down. We're holding that nose off, aerodynamic braking, getting all the energy out of the wing without over-rotating. Alright, and we'll make the taxiway. Looking on the taxiway, it's clear. We're coming off the runway. Corona Municipal traffic, experimental RV clear 25 Corona. Alright, I think this last one we'll do a soft field takeoff, and then we'll get heading back towards Chino. And we'll land at Chino, and we'll call that a good training flight in the simulator. And I think our next flight we might start working through some emergency procedures. So we're keeping the RPM above 1,800. We're going to stop here and get the aircraft cleaned up. So, holding here, RPM is 1,800 or above. We're going to go clean on the flaps. Actually, we're doing a soft field, so we'll do one notch of flaps. We're going to want it trimmed for takeoff. There it is, trimmed for takeoff. Going through the, we're keeping keeping the stick diving away from the wind right here as we're sitting on the ground. Engine oil PSI and temperature are in the green. The oil's a little low because we're sitting here at a low RPM, but we'll call that good. So before takeoff, the briefing is complete. We talked about a soft field takeoff, heading back to Chino. Landing lights on, transponder, squawking 1200 and alt. Fuel quantity, we got plenty of fuel to get back to Chino. Fuel valve is open, trim is set, flaps are set to the first detent. Engine instruments checked, canopies latched. Takeoff procedure we've already discussed. So we're looking in the pattern here. We see one aircraft. We see an aircraft there. We do have plenty of time to get in before him. We'll make a call. Corona Municipal, experimental 935 Whiskey Tango, departing 25 north departure Corona. Coming forward. So base and final are checked. We don't hear anybody calling back to us. We see that aircraft out there, but we have plenty of spacing to get in before them. Stick is into the wind. We verified that the runway is clear. Alright, we got the stick back. We're continuing our roll. We're not stopping because we're on a short field. Power's coming in. We got the stick back. Let the nose fly. It flies when it wants to, but we're holding in ground effect here. And we'll climb out at 60, which is VX. Engine in the green, 5800 on climb out, looks good. Holding VX nicely. We departed from 500 plus 700, puts us 1200 for a crosswind altitude. Climbing through 1000 now. We do want to stay clear of these clouds ahead of us. I don't think they'll be a factor. Checking out the right. Right is clear. And we're turning right, 1200. And the class Delta is going to come in pretty quick, so we're going to keep the turn in to give ourselves some time to talk to Chino. We'll fly a heading of maybe 030. Alright, and 1500 is probably good to level off. So I'm going to bring the RPM back to 5000 so that we're not going anywhere too crazy. We're going to get trimmed out so that the thing flies itself. We're going to get the flaps cleaned up. So we're calling this clean for an RV12. There's that aircraft that we just took off ahead of. We're going to want to stay clear of these clouds. Okay, so again, nose is coming down so that we're flying while we're tuning up Chino Tower. We're going to say we already grabbed the ATIS. We're going to give him Zulu. 118.5 is Chino Tower.
And we'll have ground is ready for 16 kilo again. Let's Julie parking, got hotel, ready for taxi.
416 Julie Kilo, Bullhead ground runway 16, taxi via Alpha.
16 via Alpha.
Chino Tower, experimental 935 Whiskey Tango, 4 miles south of Chino, landing at Chino with Zulu.
We're 9035 Whiskey Tango, Chino Tower, enter left base, runway runway 26 right, clear to land.
Enter left base 26 right, clear to land 26 right, experimental 935 Whiskey Tango. Alright, we're coming left. Runway 26 is...
Foxtrot pass for the I-3.
26 west, left, 26 right, excuse me, is going to be our short runway, landing to the west. So we are set up so that we're going to be landing to the west. See if we can do what we can to avoid these clouds. Alright, so we're calling this cruise. We got a good cruise RPM. Our engine instruments are in the green. We got 100 knots going here. We could probably bring the power back just a little bit. So we should start our before landing checks. So before landing, fuel valve is open, seatbelts are fastened. We're going to do a normal landing here. So approach speed 55 to 60 knots on final. Flaps as required below 82 knots. He cleared us for a left base. 26 right, and he cleared us to land. Once we're on the ground, from 26 right, we're taking the first taxiway to the right over to parking. All right, 1,600 feet looks good. Again, we're below the Charlie shelf.
Santa Barbara Tower, citation 517.
About 2 miles to go here on a left base.
For 51730, Santa Barbara Tower.
Bringing the power back.
Cleared for takeoff.
Runway 7 cleared for takeoff, citation 51730.
We're below 82. We can do a notch of flaps. Keep that descent in. Checking final. There's nobody on final. We got 65 knots, looking good. Keeping that descent in. We got a solid rated descent in there. Get it trimmed out so that it's flying itself. Field elevations here is 650. And we're at 1,300 here, so we're about 700 feet above for base at 70 knots. We're looking good. Going to continue working on slowing it down and bringing that altitude down. Glide path here looks good. Going to continue bringing the speed back, looking for 65 knots. We got 2,800 RPM in there. That's got us on a nice glide path there. What we want, we're short final here, so we want 55 to 60. Continue bringing that speed back. We still have 1 notch of flaps handy. $60 knots, looking good. Runway's clear, verified we're on 26 right. Alright, power is coming to idle. Landing is assured, so we're going to go full flaps.
Contact departure, citation 517.
Holding that stick back. We're going to transition, hold it off, hold it off, hold it off, nose pointing down, hold it off, and we're holding that nose wheel off, full aerodynamic braking, keeping the pressure off the nose, and we'll start rolling out, holding the stick back, climbing into the wind with the stick on the ground. We want to take the first taxiway we can get.
Good morning, ready for 16 holding short of runway 16, ready for departure.
416 Juliet Kilo Boha Tower, runway 16, good for takeoff, proceed on course.
Alright, we'll take a right on Charlie.
Step takeoff 16, proceed on course, 16 Juliet Kilo, thank you.
Chino Tower, experimental 935 Whiskey Tango off of 25 on Charlie to parking.
We're 5 Whiskey Tango, taxi to parking via Alpha.
Taxi to parking via Alpha 935 Whiskey Tango. Okay, we're on Alpha. We're coming left, coming forward. Between 1,800 and 2,000, 2,500 RPM to taxi. Start getting it cleaned up so flaps are clean. Trying to remember if there's fuel down here. This looks like GA parking down here. Alright, keeping our speed under control with the brakes, but keeping the engine RPM above that 1,800. Coming in here. And we'll get ourselves pointing back towards the airport. Alright, so we're going to hang out here, RPM above 1,800. We're keeping that stick into the wind. Back into the aircraft. I know we've been saying winds are calm, so we'll keep the winds in the center, or the stick in the center. So shutdown throttle. So we're at 1800 here. When we go to shutdown, we're going to take the throttle back where it's going to start operating rough, and as it starts operating rough, we're going to go to we're going to shut each of the lanes off one at a time. So throttle's coming back. We're going to go left off, right off, and off. Gives us a nice smooth shutdown. The ELT, we can verify that the ELT is not on.
Next to the kilo, contact departure.
No departure, 627.
So our ELT light is not on. Do they have one here? No, they don't. Down here. ELT light not on, so our ELT looks good. Ignition switches off. They are off. When prop stops, key removed, so the key's out. Autopilot we didn't have. Avionics off. I do wish Microsoft would get rid of that. Okay, so the avionics are off. Landing and strobes, so all of our lights are coming off. Strobes, landing light. We can record our Hobbs time, and then master switch is coming off, and then we'll secure the aircraft. So master switch is coming off. All right, hopping out. So thanks for joining us for the flight today. I hope you guys learned something about a combination of what it's like doing traffic patterns in a Vans RV12 slash a JMB VL-3. Flying through some Class Delta airspace out in the San Francisco or the California area, Los Angeles area, on the PilotEdge network. Yeah, great training. I think I'm getting used to this checklist, getting used to yeah, some of the Rotax operating nuances. So it's been good stuff for me, and I'm glad you could join for the journey. So we'll see you on the next one, and let's plan on emergency procedures in the next one. See ya.